Join us for a road trip today. We're on our way to the North Woods, but are going to stop off here to visit the King's Arrow pine trees. You'll notice these in the picture are way taller than the rest of the pine trees in the forest. The King of England had his people come over and mark the pine trees that were tall enough to be masts on his ships. And the trees were marked with an arrow with a hatchet. So you can see here the hatchet mark. So up here it is all about logging. The logging trucks have right of way on all of their roads. They're gravel logging roads for the big semi trucks. We just had to stop at this gorgeous waterfall. The North Woods are said to be 3.5 million acres in Maine, and the logging roads I was talking about, there's supposed to be 70 plus miles of logging roads up here. Our ultimate trip is taking us into the North Woods. We're looking for the ghost trains that are in the North Woods of Maine. And so that's where we're headed today. But on the way, we saw some beautiful areas. You can't really hear me here, but I am asking these Mainers that are with us. I had heard that all the water in Maine is freezing cold. And so I was asking them, even as kids, do they swim in the water? And like, how do you know when do you just turn blue and that's when you know to get out? And they actually said, yep, you just turn blue. Check out these moose prints. Aren't they awesome? Let me tell you a little bit about these ghost trains that we're on the way to find out in the forest. So first I'll tell you that the logging has been going on here since forever. And in 1901, they decided they needed the big logs to go south to Maine to the paper mills there and be, processed. To get the logs to Millinocket, Maine, they had to skip over this river that flows north and get to the one that flows south, and that river is 13 miles away. So they started off with having oxen pull the logs from the forest around that other river, the 13 miles, and then they would be on their way to the south. And then sometime later, they built a tram system, and we've got a few pictures of that. I'll show you that in a second. And it is said that the people who worked up here used the oxen yokes and warmed their homes for the whole winter after they switched over to the tram idea. This 13-mile railway was built in 1920, and it ran for 6 years. And then after that, trucks began to move the logs to their destination. They didn't need the waterway anymore. But so anyway, this was only in effect for 6 years, and when they quit doing business this way, they just left the locomotive. So it's really cool. You walk through the woods, and all of a sudden there's a railroad track and a train, and it's really cool. The gentlemen that built this railway were pretty ingenious. So they built the rail car that would hold the logs with a slant to one side. And then when they built the track out over the water, they slanted the track. So when the car would go out over the water, it would dump all of its logs all by itself, automatically dump itself, which is pretty cool. Here is a picture of the tram. So the tram had these little rollers, and they would hold the long trees, and the whole thing would go 13 miles down, and then the logs would be dumped out into the water. This is the cable that the tram ran on. And this is the big motor that pulled that cable around. Just on the other side of this water here is Hogs Island. And the reason it was called Hog Island was because they put the hogs on there, and pigs can't swim, so the hogs stayed out there until they needed to come and harvest them for food or whatever. So anyway, it is Hogs Island. This big wheel thingy is from Lenoir, Tennessee. We thought this was Lenoir, North Carolina at first, where Tim's from, but it wound up being Tennessee. The only wildlife we were able to capture was this one deer, but we actually saw 3 of them, and we saw 2 black bear. It was really cool. As you can see, I had lots of help getting in and out of this train area. It was a lovely day, and it was nice to have friends that took us and showed us all of this, and actually explored it with us because they hadn't been here before either. So it was a lovely day. I hope you enjoyed my little bit of narration today. Yeah, there's a little bit more to this video. We went to a place called Libby Camps, and it is where like big time hunter people go, And they have full-time guides for fishing and hunting and birding and whatever. And they stay in this lodge, which is lovely. There's a bunch of little lodges, and they serve them 3 meals a day. And this float plane takes them out to hunting and fishing sites, and also brings them to this place to stay for ever how many days. And this is the coolest place. If I ever win the lottery, we're gonna go back to this. This was awesome.